Hosted by Ed Steer and Dan Bolter, Life in Digital explores the ever-changing media landscape with today's industry leaders. Hello and welcome to a Life in Digital podcast special. I'm here with Jason Warner, who's the Managing Director UK and EMEA at CBS.
Hello, how are you guys doing? I should be waving to you. Hello.
Hello.
The camera's up there, right?
It's hard not to look at it. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me. Really happy to be here. Really happy to kind of go over my past experience and talk a little bit about, what we're bringing to the table in terms of culture and life in digital.
That sounds awesome. And, we're here, I guess Life in Digital actually started out as the original thought process behind the podcast was actually in COVID when people were working remotely. And we really felt like we wanted to support people who worked in digital as the world was changing fast. And I know off camera we've had that chat around the last 4 or 5 years and how it's been. But before we jump into that, it'd be great if you could just tell us a bit about SBS and the problems you solve for your customers.
So SBS, essentially, we're a programmatic curation desk, so a trading platform. So if you worked with some of the bigger guys, I'm sure some of your clients or some of the bigger agencies may have programmatic trading desks within their companies.
Yes.
So we support the kind of the more independent agencies because they don't always have access, whether it be human resource, whether it be just, the actual dollar amount. I say dollar because I'm Canadian, sorry. Yeah. But the monetary amount that they have to put forward, that they might not just have that investment available, or the investment coming in, or it's just kind of lack of knowledge. So it might be, any of those things. And so we bring programmatic knowledge to these independent agencies, and we kind of act as an extension of their team. We're an aggregator. We have our own software. We have our own tech, and we aggregate over 50 to 60 technologies now. So all cutting edge technologies that you'll find in the bigger agencies. We're now able to offer that to indie agencies. So it was a main target, but of course anyone's welcome.
Yeah, absolutely. And is it a white label solution when you're a managed service when your customers use you?
No, we've actually built an insights dashboard from scratch. So we've built that, and we're aggregating all the technologies. We've built a reporting platform. We built a planning platform in there. So that's all going into market right now, and we will be relaunching our website in probably the next month. Fingers crossed, knock on wood, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
that's kind of what we want to do because we want to hit 2025 with a vengeance. So
yeah,
SBS has been around for several years, but in the UK market, it is newer.
Yeah.
So we want to kind of make our mark here and push forward.
How's the launch been? How's it been taking the business?
It's been good. I think as launch goes, nothing ever goes perfectly, but in saying that, we've gone really good. We've had some really great clients come in. We've seen, a lot of really good success with the clients that we've had. We're working with some charities now to do some pro bono work as well.
Oh, awesome.
So it's because I believe in giving back. We've given a platform like this, one should always try to give back where they can.
Yeah, absolutely.
So we're trying to use it the best way possible. We've just run some vendor working shops. So part of, our proposition is to kind of level up the knowledge within the clients that we're working with. So, they might not know of X, Y, Z. So we kind of bring, CTV, or we bring last 2 weeks ago. No, it was last week. God, it seems like it's all into one. But we brought video gaming, so gaming platform in. We brought a DCO platform in. We brought digital out of home and a few other ones that the agencies that we were working with have not previously done, and they've not put on plans for 2025.
Okay, that's cool.
So that's something that we're able to do. So we had a 4-hour kind of session at the IAB. And, everyone, it was like speed dating, the guys came in for, 30 minutes. And it turned out to be a really great workshop. So we're doing this several times a year for different agencies, and we go to different parts of the country to do it as well.
Yeah, that sounds incredible. And out of interest, I don't want to make an assumption in my mind. When you're speaking to agencies in that kind of independent sphere, are there common themes about what they need to level up on knowledge-wise, or is that really agency by agency and client by
agency by agency? But what I'm finding is maybe there might be one. So a lot of these indie agencies, they have people from the big six, and they might have lived in London pre-COVID, and finding this kind of theme a lot. And during COVID, as we know, a lot of people left.
Yes,
and they went for kind of more of a slower lifestyle, more space, whatever it may be. Close to their families, whatever meet. So, the people that we're meeting in Manchester or Leeds or Bristol or whatever like that, they've worked in, the wave makers, Dentsus and all that kind of stuff. So they have programmatic knowledge, but it's just them in the company, and they cannot do it all.
And it changes so fast, right?
It changes so fast. Exactly that. So, it's been an interesting, because the odd theme is, I need help with this because I don't have time to train this. I might have an executive or whatever it may be, or we just farm it out to someone else because we just don't have the resource internally. So that's usually the kind of theme that I'm getting when talking. But then there's also people that just say, I don't know anything about media. That's how it goes. You know, this wasn't in my remit before, so I need to figure this out because my client wants me to do that. You know, if we're looking at some surveys coming out, you know, traditional media is pretty much no longer being put on plans anymore. You know, it's moved to digital in different ways that you could use digital. So I think it's really important for these smaller agencies or just agencies or anyone in general trying to do advertising that they know the landscape. And so that's what we're kind of there to help provide for these people that need our help.
Yeah, sounds really cool. And we mentioned the impact of the shift towards hybrid working, and just from a workplace culture point of view, I'm really excited to hear your views on this. So, what do you think hybrid working's meant for workplace culture?
So I think the interesting thing, and I'm going to talk about my personal experience, and then I'll talk about business in general. Yes. When COVID came, you know, it was so weird to stop. It was so weird to stop and kind of reassess, because I think, you know, if you live in the
were you 5 days?
I was 5 days in the office. Yeah. You know, they said that there was flexible working, but there really wasn't. I mean,
you can start at 9:30.
You know, you can start at 9:30 instead of 9. You make the time. That's flexible working. Yeah. So that was quite interesting. And then it came into just being able to stop, because I know that if you work in London, you kind of come in Monday to Friday. Thursday could be a dangerous night where you're out a little bit later than you'd like to because after work drinks or whatever it may be. But that can happen several days a week. You have client stuff, client functions and whatever. And it just gets overwhelming. It gets overwhelming, you know, and I think when COVID happened, I personally was just exhausted. I was absolutely exhausted. I lived here for, I guess it was 2020 now. So I lived here for about 6 years now.
Yeah.
And I thought to myself, wow, okay, let's just reassess this. And so I was on furlough for 6 months, and that was not fun because I was quite bored, you know, a lot of kiddie pool action in that great summer that we had in the backyard.
Yeah.
But, you know, when we went back to work, you know, it was working from home then 1 day a week, then 2 days a week. And then the flexibility, because your life actually did change during this time, unless you started, you know, after COVID. You know, your life did change, and you had to figure out, okay, how do I balance it? Some people got dogs. I got a dog personally. So it's like leaving my house 5 days a week. I will come home to things I don't want to find. Yeah. So that kind of stuff. So I have to take that in mind. In terms of the office, though, you know, in bringing back the office in my previous job that I was at, everyone, again, had moved out. They've done their thing. Some people lived in Essex now. Some people lived, you know, in the different counties, whatever like that. And traveling, it costs them £50 a day. So how do you figure that out? So we downsized our office, which I think was a main thing that a lot of people did. And then we kind of had people pick what days they like to come in. Some people like to be in 5 days a week, and that's great. So we always made sure that we had a space for those people. Some people like to be in 2 days a week, 3 days a week, just depending on what their diary is like. So we mandated at the beginning 1 day a week, just so the teams could get together. You know, some people didn't know each other, so we just had to figure it out. And then, you know, some people would be like, this is great. You know, we're getting a lot more done. Now, depending on how busy you are, you know, sometimes being in the office could be more of a hindrance than, you know, it actually being good for your day to day, because sometimes, like, I know for myself, I was going home and doing more work. Yes. Because I was bogged down in meetings, and that happens. It's fine.
And talking to people.
And talking, and, you know, what is this talking thing? You know, you had to kind of readjust yourself to that. So that was really, you know, interesting. But as it got on, you know, with the team, we kind of figured out that we actually like being together. So, you know, I didn't ever say that you have to be in 3 days a week, because I thought, you know, the 3 days was kind of pushing it at the time. So let's start with 1 and 2. And then sometimes 3 days a week was just happened, you know, whether it be like client meetings, we kind of work around. I give everyone the flexibility to say, you know, there's 1 core day that we should be in. Then after that, we can kind of figure it out as we go. Some days I'll be in, you know, 3 days a week. Some days I'll be in 4 days a week. Last week I was in 4 days. This week, I'm going to be in 2 days. So we give the people flexibility around their lifestyle. But of course, depending on what work needs to be done, we all kind of are adults within the business that I work in. And we can say, okay, yeah, let's make sure that we're in this and this day. So we can collaborate, or we can meet up, or we can do whatever we need to do. But also the flexibility to know that if you can't come in, it's not going to be like the end of the world for you. So that's kind of how we facilitate it.
Yeah. And what have you noticed about the direction of travel? Because we went from that real, like, everyone listens to the major players out there. So you hear Meta and Amazon, we're going to be fully remote versus we're going to be 5 days a week. So if you look at the world around you today, what's your assessment of how the land lies from kind of workplace culture and creating the right strategies to be inclusive for the whole workforce?
Yeah, I still have some friends that work at, I won't name the one that you mentioned there. And they're pretty pissed off right now. So, they're looking, life has changed. And actually going back to the conversation we had about the indie agencies and having some of the big players kind of leave the city and go out, that was part of the reason they left, is because they wanted to say, I'm not going back 4 or 5 days a week. I now live far, I can't do that. But it's also, there's some of these offices that are mandating people back but don't have space for them anymore. So they have to.
Where are you going to sit?
Where are you going to sit? What do you have to come in and fight for a desk, basically.
Yeah.
And if not, what are you going to go sign in and go to a cafe around the corner?
Yeah.
So I get both sides of the argument. Don't get me wrong, but I think we do have to realize that the world has changed for a lot of people, and we have some great people that are in our teams that they just. Whether it be that they live in Margate, whether they live in XYZ, you have to figure it out with them. But also, if you signed a contract that said that the work is going to be hybrid, then it should stay that way. It shouldn't be mandated that you have to come back 5 days a week. Unless that's negotiated or whatever it may be.
Yeah, I wonder what contractual positions organisations are in when if they've signed.
It's a question that I've definitely asked that question before, and I have a friend that works at one of the places that are mandated back 5 days a week from January, and now he is, again, looking at his options. Because one of the conversations we had was, what does your contract say? Your contract when you started was that you're completely hybrid, and then it went from 2 days, 3 days, 4 days, and then now 5.
Yeah.
Right? So
big changes.
And what is hybrid working? Is 4 days still considered hybrid working? I don't know.
If I ask you what's hybrid working, what would your response be?
2 to 3 days max. That's me personally, though.
In office.
In office, 2 to 3 days max. But hybrid working is I'm lucky enough to have a team that, everyone knows what they need to get done. And they are grown enough to do that, and I don't really have to chase them. But not all organizations are like that. So you have to kind of look at that and look around, assess the room, and figure out who might need more support than others. And kind of go with that. So I think that's a big part, and that's any manager's job to kind of take a look at. And also, it might, I have to look at that in hiring in 2025, am I going to look at more executives and junior people? And if I do so, that means that I physically going to have to be with them and kind of hold their hand, especially for the first, 6 months to 8 months kind of thing, while they kind of get on board and get them to learn the job.
It's so hard. I think for big, large organisations, it's so hard. We have the benefit, being the size Sphere is, to have a flexible approach, which means just that. But I think when you have to think about a workforce with thousands and thousands of people, and and being equal across that, it must be a real
you have to figure out what you want and what you want for your business and what you want moving forward. I'm going to have to really take a good look at that, because as much as I love my 2-3 days in the office, if I hire XYZ, then that's going to change. My day-to-day is going to change, and also my facility is going to have to change, because I have a small office that we had during COVID, and not COVID, but like coming out of COVID. And so now I have to look at that for 2025 as well, So I'm actually currently doing my planning for that, and planning of, what kind of resource I'm going to need and what growth looks like to me.
Yeah.
And all that fun stuff you do at, planning process or planning season. So that's, part of my thoughts. Yeah, exactly.
I think I don't know whether this will go out this, I'm sure we'll go out this other Christmas, but it's very much 2025 planning season. And when it comes to kind of effective strategies to build, collaborative working environments and working environments where people can fulfill their potential. What do you think are the strategies you've seen implemented really well when it comes to creating environments where people can really thrive at work? Yeah, so
I've worked for several companies that, and again, coming from Canada and North America, I worked with a lot of Silicon Valley companies. So they always had, these values that they laid out. And I've, my major position that kind of moved me to the UK, but my major position, we led by these values. These values, they gave us like a little placard, which was on each one of our desks. When we're doing our reviews, this is part of, we have to make sure that we're matching these values in some of our answers in the way that we kind of portray ourselves within the office and with the people that we work with. And I took that to heart, and I carried that with me. And so these are values that to me seem like common sense, but they're really not common sense to a lot of people, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's just openness, being, honest, being collaborative in the way that you communicate with people, and, often having kind of more of a open environment where you can kind of just talk to people, ask questions, be inquisitive, that kind of stuff. And so that kind of stuff is what I take for. Now, I don't take for granted that I've had some really great mentors in my career as well. So I want to be able to give back the knowledge, because if they did not take the time to do this to me, then I would not be where I am now. So I want to make sure that with the people that I encounter, or the people that I work with, that I hire to come to SBS, that I kind of follow forward with, doing that for them as well.
Forward. Did you see, where companies have values, it's so successful companies are always values driven.
Yes.
Because they managed to figure that out. What do you think helps enable, or what do you think enables companies to actually genuinely operate within their values and to stay true to them?
I strongly believe, and I've had a lot of evidence, I've seen it, experience, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
But if you don't lead from the top down, you're screwed.
Yeah.
That's how it goes. A lot of middle managers, as I've been in the past, have tried to kind of command things. You could do that within your team, but if it's not coming from, the C-suite or the directors or anything like that coming down, then you're kind of fighting a strong kind of current against you, a rip current, I should say, more than anything else. And so at SBS, what we do is we really make sure that because I'm leading this, is lead, from examples, and lead as an example, but just be the best I can for my team. No question's a dumb question. How can I help you move forward? I'm about to do some reviews, so I'm coming up with a review plan, kind of very similar to what I spoke about before, for the company, just to say, how can I help you move forward? But also just ask them, how can I be better myself? I mean, I think that's a question that, a lot of people are afraid of, because you can think that your stuff doesn't stink, but there's some things that you do just might not come out well.
Yeah.
So it's just it's being just very aware of yourself, and just being aware of your leadership and how you're impacting someone else's life. You're impacting your office's life. You're impacting that. And I know that there's always going to be, you can't make everyone happy, but you can try your best.
Absolutely.
And I think that's something I've seen before, where I've seen so many places where they just they don't know better. Honestly, I think some of the people that I've worked with, I've honestly tried to get into their brain to figure out, what has happened previously. But if you're not taught, you don't learn. And I was lucky enough to be taught in a certain way. And I've worked for several companies, and I've worked across 3 countries before. So, I've taken the best of what I've learned out of those experiences, and I'm bringing that forward.
I know it's interesting, and time has changed. I think, although businesses who promoted inclusivity and a strong culture have existed for hundreds of years, right? It's about how you are and how you operate and how you listen. Obviously, that moves with the times. But so I'm not sure if this is relevant or not. But what do you notice about the workplace culture in North America, be that the US, Canada, and the UK? Do you think there's differences in workplace culture?
Yes, there are differences. There are differences. I mean, so the likes of Montreal, for example, is a much more laid-back city than it is you would find in Toronto or even London. Well, of course, London.
It's not New York.
So it's not New York. No, it's not New York. I don't think there's very few places that compare to New York. But it's interesting because I remember in Montreal, hybrid working. Actually, I saw it more in Montreal in 2011 to 2014. Than I ever saw in London. So that was something, and again, but that again goes to the company I worked for. It wasn't every company was like that.
Yes, it's the organisation.
Yeah, it was it was more relaxed in that way. I also remember, working in advertising. We've all kind of been in those places where things don't always go the way that you want them. Even best laid plans, sometimes they fall apart. And so I remember I guess he was the managing director at that time. He's a big guy, 6'3", and he would get up on the skateboard and just go around the office in a circle like this. And he says, "Everyone calm down. It's just advertising." And I just thought, that's something I've taken forward as well, because, if it's a Thursday or Friday afternoon and your client is just driving, you're pulling out your hair, I just kind of say that out loud to everybody. Like, okay, relax. It's just advertising. We're not curing cancer. It's just, that's all it is. And, it's just kind of bringing back the humanity of it all. And, okay, let's, also, and one thing is just bring solutions, not, tell me the problem, great, but let's figure it out.
Yeah, what's the answer?
And that's part of me also sitting there working out, even if it's basic reporting stuff or whatever like that, this junior person doesn't know. And so I have to go in and help them. And that's part of, my remit. And so these are things that I've picked up from, different offices. Toronto is a bit more corporate, kind of as you would find in, bigger cities. The United States, again, the office I had, I was in San Francisco. They had dogs in the office back in the early 2010s.
Yeah.
Very relaxing. They were just, everyone was there for the right reason.
Yeah.
I read the survey, and I don't remember where I read the survey, where it was people that actually enjoy their jobs versus people that just do their jobs to make a living. And in San Francisco, I found that people actually enjoyed their work, and that was part of the engagement, everything that you found, the passion and again, that goes down to the company I was working for at the time, but that's what I was exposed to. So that's what I can kind of speak on.
Yeah, meaningful work makes such a difference, doesn't it?
Then I find in the UK, that 50-50 split again, where, yes, we live in a very expensive city, so we have to kind of, feed ourselves and put a roof over our head, but not everyone I talk to loves their job, and that's really unfortunate, because that's something that, it makes such a big difference to your day to day.
Yeah. And
how you kind of, just your personality, how you can interact, and how you're just a happier person in general. And so, that's the one thing that I have noticed living in a bigger city.
Yes.
But again, every city has its pluses and minuses.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out where that shift is post-COVID, because it was such a traumatic period, really. So I'm trying to figure out what's workplace culture like pre versus post-COVID. They're seismically different, and there's the pros and cons of both. But yeah,
I think the complaints that I hear now is kind of the ones that we were talking about earlier. Is, oh my God, they're making you go to the office 4 days a week. But again, we are living in a weird world where interaction is now completely changed.
Totally, yeah.
Interaction. So we have to kind of, and I know for myself, I had to really kind of re-engage myself into interacting with human beings.
Yes.
Because it wasn't really on the menu for the first day year after COVID.
It was not.
I really had to go to offices one day, But, we just have to kind of lead by example, show that it can work, but it doesn't have to work on the old school, the old, what's the word I'm looking for? The old school kind of way that we used to work. It doesn't have to be 5 days a week. It can be whatever you make it, whatever works for you. Just make sure that you're able to support the people that work for you.
And much more alcohol fueled, right, as well.
Yeah.
Yes, which we all know, fun for the right moment, right person. But it also presented huge challenges too. So I guess that leads to another question. From a DEI point of view, and advertising actually being a more inclusive industry that attracts a broader spectrum of people in this industry, how do you think we're really doing? So it's so prominent. We're a staffing firm, so it's on every agenda that we deal with. But
we're doing a lot better. A lot better than what I've seen in the past. I'm in my 40s now, so I've seen a lot in the time, from my career being in advertising for about 20 years. But I've also lived in different cities, so I don't know how things are in Montreal now. I don't know how things are in Toronto now, but I can speak that I've seen a lot of growth in it. Yes, advertising is very open, which has always been really amazing. You can kind of be who you want to be.
Yeah,
and get away with that. Now, in some outfits, it might be a little bit more kind of, how you know when to push the boundaries and know when to pull back a bit. And that's just kind of being self-aware. Can we do more? I think some companies could do a bit more. Or not just whitewash, certain things like, there's Black History Month, there's Pride Month, there's various different, things happening throughout the year. So being more of a kind of, not just whitewash it, but just actually be supportive throughout, the whole year. I think I did a stint with Pride in London last year.
I saw that. And Media as well?
Pardon?
And Media for All as well?
Yeah, Media for All as well. Yeah, so I've just started Media for All in October, so that's just kicking off now. But Pride for London, I started in last year. I thought, I have time. I want to start giving back. And part of what they were talking about is, a lot of companies, they want to come in for June.
Yes.
And then they want to exit after that. And so now Pride in London are making people sign up for the whole year and signing up for courses to do, just training on, just quality training and training on how to treat their companies, how to treat people that are from that community within their company and stuff like that. So that's been something that they wanted to just stop the whitewashing of Pride. And I think when I moved here, I've never seen such a corporate Pride presence in a major city before, which is great when you're not used to it. But then after I hear the flip side of it, I'm like, okay, I understand a little bit more now. So that's been interesting. But I think, also, I remember when I first moved here, I had some, I was called ghetto, which was interesting because I'm the least ghetto person right now. But compared to what they were used to, I thought that was quite, it didn't really shake me at the time, but now that I think, in hindsight, I was like, oh, that's it's quite rude, actually.
Yeah, incredibly.
And I guess I just kind of had this armor on myself to kind of just take the bullets and have them bounce right off of me kind of thing. And that's something that, I realized, okay, well, that's not okay.
Yeah,
and,
absolutely.
I've, had conversations around that since then.
Yeah.
But that was some of the things that I had to get used to when I moved here. And I guess, being from North America, it's a different lifestyle completely from the way that you dress, from the way that you present yourself, from the way you speak and everything like that. And then coming to the UK and working in a office where people, I wouldn't say they were completely posh, but they were just, different than what, you get on the
media in London, yeah.
Media in London kind of thing. And so, there were differences. Yeah, so there were differences, and that's how it goes. And, I do believe that they've learned since then.
Yeah.
Since, because not me personally, but they've gone through things that have taught them some behaviors that are not okay. And hopefully they're not doing it still. But I've definitely faced some just not so kind commentary in the past. And again, I think after a while you just kind of develop this armor, and then you don't let it get to you. But then in hindsight, you think about it, it's like, hey, that wasn't okay. Hey, that wasn't okay. Okay, let me not do that.
How much more empowered, I know this is you as an individual, I guess, how much more empowered do you feel to speak out in those moments?
I don't know if it's actually, I was saying this the other day, I don't know what's happened over the last couple of years, but I've really come out of my shell, and I do have a rather slick mouth if I need to.
Yeah.
And so if I find something that is not okay, I will definitely speak up on that.
Yeah.
Or if I find treatment of someone around me that, someone that I either care about or that, I work with that, needs a little bit of more of a backbone, I will speak up for them as well. Because I think, some people, again, I mentioned this before, some people just don't know better.
Yeah, and I wonder if it's also such a responsibility on an organisation to call it out, and on it's not the individual who's impacted because of comments made about them, it's the impact it has on everyone around them. So there's such responsibility.
Yeah, there's ears all around, so you have to be careful what you say. And I think one of the things that I mention to myself sometimes, if I think that I want to say something, I'm like, Jason, shut up, don't say it. Stop it, because you don't know who's around listening to you, right? Yeah. So just keep it to yourself, internalize it and move on. Keep it moving, that's it.
Yeah.
That's something I've had to live by recently, because again, you never know who's around you.
Yeah.
So you just mind your P's and Q's.
And if organisations are taking steps towards creating more inclusive environments and being involved with things like Pride, not just for the month of Pride, what advice would you give to companies and people who are listening who are looking to set those first steps, either individually or as a
I would just create a community. So there's, depending on how big your office is, how many people you have, have a community, ask people, ask around. If you don't know, there's people that might know that in your group. So you can create in several offices I work, we've had a culture committee, whatever like that, and we kind of talk about what's important to everyone. But of course, we want to bring people together. It's not all just going to the pub after work kind of thing and putting a card behind a bar. It's doing other stuff that mean things to other people. I know that we've done charity days, and so we've made sure that we take advantage of that. Sustainability is a big topic right now, so becoming a B Corp, that's really important. Mentoring and just I've come across a lot of people that are a bit younger, and they want to know how can they be getting involved in advertising, whatever like that. So putting them in the right direction. So just knowing what's available and putting that forward for the right reasons. My reason to go to Pride last year was just because I had not given back, and I thought, this is the right time for me to be able to do so, and this is going to be good for me to help the community and also learn more about it myself. and kind of, what
Have you found that to be what you expected?
Yes, it was really good. It was a really kind of eye-opening experience. They offer a lot of great services. But again, it was more kind of also the corporate whitewashing, which I kind of knew about, but I didn't really know about. I mean, it's hard not to see it.
The hell out of me.
Exactly that. After, I think it was maybe right before COVID, you start to see right in the lead up to June, you see every shop has something for sale. Okay.
Yes, literally. Yeah.
I was like, okay, when does it become too much? So that was interesting. And of course, the MIFA stuff that you mentioned before, it's the same thing as just wanting to be able to give people opportunities that might not have it, and to have someone that they could talk to on a regular basis, but also for the position.
I know some of the founding guys. They sort of explain their journey, their experience, and how it all came about. And you think, wow, it's
a powerful tool. It's a really powerful tool. And even in my state or where I am in my career, I still want people to mentor me because I still have a lot to learn. And I think you have to be open to taking stuff in and being a sponge. Being in the position I'm in and growing a team. Yes, I've had many teams before, but I want this team to be different. I want it to kind of take everything I've learned from the past and bring the best over to this new company, which is amazing. So
yeah. And if someone was starting advertising today, what advice would you give someone who starts in 2025?
Try everything you can possible. I think the one thing that I learned and the one thing that was the best for me is I was in a place where I can kind of take knowledge from different teams and work with different teams on different projects, and then look at what I've done and what I've learned from those different projects and figure out what best to do, what interests me the most out of everything I'm doing. I started my career in, the moving point in my career is moving directly towards operations and ops, which was, great. But my personality, one of my old bosses says, Jason, I think you'd be better in the commercial role. I think that's more for you. You can ask questions, you know how to get in front of people and just kind of say the things that you need to say kind of thing to move things forward. And I was like, really? But I don't want to do that. Then I tried it and lo and behold, it worked. That was it. And, my first commercial director role was a really good role for the first couple of years. It was something completely new. I like changing things up as well and doing new things. But, it was really the growth that we saw in those couple of years that I was in that role was, I think it was 3 times.
Incredible.
So it was really, really good because I taught my team to get out of the way that they were selling things. It's don't be that asshole salesperson. That's kind of what I said to them. I said, don't be, that kind of, that's the analogy I used. It was a bit crude, but it was like that, it's like going on a first date, but, let's follow up. Let's not just leave them at the side. And that's what I told them to do with their clients. And once they saw that the clients actually thought that they actually cared about them and want to kind of move them forward and not just sell to them just to make their quota, everything changed. And they all started making more money. So this is how you take things forward.
Yeah, long-term relationships.
So again, I did not think that I would be good into that or good for that. But, I tried something new and I leaned into it. And lo and behold, it's moved me forward several roles since then. So that's what I would think for anybody. You kind of out of uni, you find yourself, you land in a role, but that doesn't determine your future. You just have to kind of keep your head up and kind of look to see what's around and, maybe lean into asking to help with certain projects, whatever like that, and kind of move forward from there. And if something piques your fancy, run for it.
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah.
Great stuff. All right. Well, thank you so much. Thanks for coming in. I really appreciate your time.
No problem. Thank you for having me. I really appreciate you having me.
Cheers. Thank you for listening to today's episode of Life in Digital. If you want to know more about our guest or any of the topics that we covered today, you can find out more in our show notes and on our website.